Let's explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I literally just woke up and realized that we still need about a half an hour of our Rumble Premium exclusive stream. And so that's what this is. I am going to be streaming something that we normally only stream over on Substack. It's the Badlands Blitz. Badlands.substack.com. It's only for Substack subscribers. It's pretty good what they're doing. Badlands Blitz, Burning Bright, Ghost, Ash. They put together roughly a 1 hour stream each week to kind of buzz through, recap the news. And so I'm going to give you guys a little taste of what that is if you're not already subscribed. So I'm going to go exclusive over on Rumble right now. We're also on YouTube and Twitter. And then we're going to play this. So we'll see you guys in a little bit. Here you go.
Hey guys, welcome to the Badlands Blitz, episode 3, joined by Ghost again. And we'll see if this one gets somewhat close to 60 minutes. If it doesn't, then this one's 100% our fault because we're not going to do 20 minutes on what the show is. So this is the show where we go back through the brief Monday through Friday. We try to sort of revisit our takes from the week and your takes from the week in the comments section. And obviously, this is the type of week, like many of them, where there's some macro narratives that sort of take over the whole thing. So we'll probably skip ahead some days as we're hitting these topics. But we're going to try to sort of, even if we're talking about one topic Monday through Friday, we'll try to hit some different aspects of it throughout the week. But before we get into it, how you doing, man?
I'm great. Yeah, we talked before the show. It sounds like we're both dealing with issues in our lives that have nothing to do with this stuff. But yeah,
mostly our wives' faults.
Yeah, that's right. Just, that's life though. So
right, exactly.
But this week has been a fantastic week. I mean, the fact that we just did the narrative together on Sunday, and all the things we talked about, and then there were some really big topics that kind of carried through the whole week. Primarily Davos, like the World Economic Forum, driving all of it, and the Board of Peace. So I know we'll spend a lot of time probably talking about those things.
Yeah, let me see, make sure I've got the right day. Yeah, the Board of Peace is big. We'll obviously get to that. Before the Board of Peace, though, this kind of all started with, and it was a great week. I agree with you. Like last year there was a lot of times when, especially on DPH, John's a bit of a negative Nancy at times, but I also did understand where he would be like, man, it's reruns, and kind of not in a fun way. In 2025, it's like, man, we've had these arguments a million times, right? Yeah. And but I like the writing in 2026. Some good writing going on.
Fantastic.
And this one, just what I liked about the Greenland and the Board of Peace, all this kind of stuff, and Davos, is that it feels like they didn't do any subversive storytelling. Like, we had some ideas going in, and they were basically met. But my leadoff take that I was writing about on Monday is, before Trump was in Davos, he sort of prepped this whole narrative block with the Greenland push. Mm-hmm. That's really kind of was the table setting narrative. And, he was talking about basically annexing Greenland, buying Greenland, not taking Greenland by force, and just kind of screwing with everybody in the globalist hegemon. Obviously, it felt like the timing of that was intended to be, he knew he was going to Davos a week later. And I really think, besides this being performative for all the leaders and elites that he was going to be face to face with over there, I think a lot of the performative nature of this stuff is for the macro audience, not this audience, of saying, all right, for a week leading into Davos, pretty much the whole battle space, especially North America, even normal people, are like arguing back and forth about Greenland. And I think I had joked last week, when's the last time somebody was arguing about Greenland like over dinner? that's not into, crazy stuff that we're into? Probably never. So I think that's how this education process sort of works. And my leadoff take is one narrative that I think was a little buried with just the flood of Davos and how epic that was, is that I had remarked in the Monday brief that one of the real pickles that the regime was in the Greenland narrative was not just the power dynamics Trump was talking about, but the fact that the reason Trump was forwarding power dynamics as the reason to take Greenland, or to do whatever he wants to do with Greenland, he used the narrative about the Russia-China axis in order to translate his sell to the American people and even to the Canadian people. And, there's no such thing as a Greenlander, but that was his sell. And I think the reason I say that that's a pickle is because that is the story that the regime and the globalist apparatus has been telling their people, including when they've been demonizing Donald Trump for the last decade. A big vector of attack from the globalists toward Donald Trump is his relations with Russia, his relations with Xi Jinping and China, and basically saying, hey, these are our enemies. I mean, and in Davos, I was actually a little surprised. They directly referred to Russia as their enemy, which they don't usually use that kind of rhetoric. So anyway, I thought it was like a great Trojan horse to get into this narrative where it felt like while Trump was starting to tease the Board of Peace heading toward Davos, and you and I knew who that was going to be, broadly speaking, his public rhetoric was, hey, you guys all agree, like even the people that hate Donald Trump agree that Russia bad and China bad. And so, I should protect you from Russia and China bad. And I felt like Carney and the rest of the establishment, even before Davos, they were having a really hard time navigating that rhetoric, because what are they going to do? Say that Donald Trump is actually in league with Russia and China when he's publicly posturing against them? It just seemed it was a great way, I think, for him to set the table on that narrative.
Yes, absolutely. I think you're right about all that. I agree about the running in, like we were running in circles in 2025 narratively. Like it felt like there's a lot of reruns. It felt like airplanes in a holding pattern. Like you're in the airplane, you're circling the airfield. They're like, we're going to land any minute, guys. But like an hour and a half later, you're still circling the airfield. This just happened to me, of course, in the Caribbean.
Right.
Yeah. But I realized sometime over like the holiday season, Thanksgiving, Christmas, that I think the reason we were experiencing that was because Trump was stalling in order to get the economic foundation laid out so that we had a strong economic foundation before we went into the political instability of what this revolution really requires, which is
right.
upending the status quo, where in those moments of chaos of revolutionary change, that's when I think the CIA really shines in terms of being able to get in there and steer it in a different direction using psyops and color revolutionary tactics. And so in order to avoid that, you make sure people have a strong belief in the economy and they are less inclined to take to the streets because, hey, I have work in the morning and I my job pays me great and there's not an incentive to do that.
Right.
Your switch theory, I think, kind of hits that right on the head. And, obviously drafting off the momentum of the Great Reset versus the Good Reset, right? Now, the Greenland thing is amazing because we talked about on the narrative a number of topics, but one of the things we mentioned was like Trump is just as much the Joker as he is Batman, right? And like then the whole moves and counter moves of the geopolitics, MAGA in 2026 or 2016 supported Trump because we recognized that both parties are controlled by foreign interests, right? You can debate.
Yeah, we did know that at the time.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah. And a lot of people forgot it along the way, I think.
A lot of people have forgotten that. But then the deep state leaned into that, and they were like, "Oh yeah, there is foreign infiltration. It's Russia, and they're in bed with Trump." And then all of a sudden, Fox News was allowed to start criticizing China, right, and saying, "Oh, China bad. Joe Biden is controlled by China." And then Joe Biden becomes president, and all of a sudden, Xi Jinping is like turning his back on Biden and is like sticking it to Biden, and it's like, well, this isn't really aligning with the whole China Joe narrative that we've been told. So it's like moves and counter moves, moves and counter moves. Like they're all like the deep state's trying to capitalize on the narratives that Trump's putting out. And then Trump kind of like turns their narratives against them as well over the years. So the Greenland thing has been amazing because as we've been talking about, and I've been talking about on my programs, Trump has kind of lifted the veil on like neoconservative, the neoliberal, warmongering, New World Order, the stuff that they've been talking about at Davos all week, where he stopped pretending that we do this stuff for noble reasons and just started being like, we do this because we are the strongest and nobody's going to stop us.
Right.
Like that's the rhetoric. And Stephen Miller's going out there and saying, who's going to stop us? Nobody in Europe can stop us. We do what we want because we're the strongest and they can't protect Greenland from Russia and China, to your point. Yeah. But I have been saying, and I said it even as recently on Breaking History to Matt Ehret, who's a Canadian, I said, look, a lot like the white nationalist crowd would look at Greenland and say, oh, these are a bunch of white Europeans. We want to bring them in as citizens to the United States and, keep America white. Like that's what the Groypers would say. But I said, I've been saying all along, this is actually watering our stock down because these people are all European socialists. They have no foundation in American, like the American value system. They're not based. They're Europeans. That doesn't mean there aren't based individuals in Europe, but I'm saying as a general culture, they reject, they don't align with us because they don't have our history. So
our culture is essentially collectivism. It's like, it is by definition collectivism. And that's definitely something, and I've talked about this with Canadians as well. Yep. It's certainly an education process or sort of an awakening process I went through where I even, as a liberal at the time, disillusioned liberal, but when I was living in Canada a little over a decade ago, I would have those moments being like an anti-Bush liberal American where I couldn't connect in political conversations to Canadians because they would constantly be appealing to authority. Like everything that they said was an appeal to authority, an appeal to systems. And it was eye-opening for me in a good way because as a liberal, you kind of end up in collectivist framing many times. But I realized, I was like, wow, there really is something fundamentally different about being an American and being a Canadian, where like these people genuinely believe, like it's not an epiphany to a lot of people, especially in this audience. But at the time, I remember distinctly realizing they don't think we have fundamental rights. They genuinely don't believe that. Mm-hmm. They genuinely believe like our government has provided us with rights. Yes. And so there's talking past each other that happens between Americans and Canadians and Europeans where you're like, you guys know about liberty, right? And they're like, yeah, the government protects it. It's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. Like, you understand the first principle here, right? Like, you understand that human beings have innate rights, right? And they don't. Now, obviously, like you said, individuals do. But these constructs, like people who are proud to be European or Canadian, are objectively wrong. I think that that's the difference for me now. It used to be like, oh, we've each got, it's good to be proud to be this. It's good to be proud to be that. It's actually not. It's okay to be proud to be ethnically French, or this is my Canadian ancestry, or whatever it is like. But if you're, or culturally, but if you are proud nationally to be Canadian or European, you've been duped.
Yeah. And one of the best examples of this from a society, cultural standpoint, just because I've been going so deep into it the past couple of years and learning about it, is Israel. Israel, they openly say that we have to surrender the rights of the individual to protect the collective. The Jewish community must be protected from external threats, and that means that individuals within the Jewish community must surrender their sovereignty, effectively their rights, so that we can protect them. Right? That's the whole like founding idea behind Israel. But getting back to Greenland, and even Canada, like a year ago when we were talking about adding Canada as a 51st state, and everyone was like pumping the fist and waving the American flag and saying, yeah, everyone's going to become Americans. And the minute they become Americans, they're all going to be super base and red pill like we are. Well, I mean, just look at the MAGA movement, man. Like, we have picked up so many new factions into our coalition over the past 10 years. And as a result, MAGA has kind of been watered down from its core ethos because we have, I think, compromised our positions in order to form consensus and placate
under unity.
yeah, and like placate these new arrivals. And I think the right mindset is actually to say, you know what, guys, you were the ones who came to us. Like you have abandoned your old positions and come to our tent, and that's great. Like we welcome you, but maybe you should, as they said on 4chan, lurk more and stop imposing your ideas on us, and learn why you came to this tent and we didn't come to your tent.
Right. I mean, it makes me think of on a culture war level. There's a guy, Chris Gore, film critic, longtime film critic, like one of the few who didn't cuck out to the humiliation ritual over the last 10, 15 years in Hollywood. And he infamously, in reference to Disney's era of Star Wars, he said Disney bought the two most powerful boy brands in the world in Star Wars and in Marvel Comics, literally at the time, two most powerful boy brands, and turned them into girl brands to try to attract girls to them, and lost the boys.
Yes.
So it's like, and that's a branding thing, right? But that's really what we're talking about here. Like
Yes.
MAGA is a brand. That's what it is. It's representative of real things. It's representative of first principles, but it's absolutely true that, you know, like if you go into, as a nerd, when I was into all the geek culture stuff, you come into a comic book shop and start like talking down to people who like comic books, then they're not going to welcome you in there. They're going to be assholes to you. It's like, this is our thing here. Yeah. You came in here. Go fuck yourself if you think that this is stupid. And it's just amazing to watch kind of major corporations have been committing seppuku the last 10 years, and countries have been. And I think that does underlie it too. The other thing you mentioned in the Monday brief, your take here was all about Mark Carney, central banker king takes the field, panic in London, and you had some of the stuff leading. And man, did Carney make a splash this week in some interesting ways. But you know, you and I talked about him, and obviously Matt Ehret, when that swap out happened, and just said, man, broadly speaking, what a great cipher for Donald Trump to have to forward. Because the Trudeau thing, it was getting old. He was never a great our boy, never as entertaining as Zelensky, too gay, too just like, he was even annoying to hate, I feel like. Whereas Carney, we're like, ooh, this is a good villain up here. We can get on board with this.
Yeah. Like we thought Hillary Clinton was a great villain. This guy is a great villain. And I wouldn't have known all of this if it weren't for Matt Ehret. He's the one who put all of this on me. And
he was way ahead of the curve on Carney. He saw it coming too. He saw the swap out coming like a year in advance.
Oh yeah, for sure. So all the credit to him. And so that's why, and by the way, like that take I put out on Monday, because I'm the editor on the Monday edition, all those videos were from the week before. So it was like we put that in the Monday brief, and then everything after that happens at Davos. And again, it's like we said on Sunday, it's not about being right. It's just the affirmation that this is the right direction. This is the path out of the labyrinth, right? Like this is the way we need to go to understand mapping our way out of here. But
this was him talking about the New World Order.
Yes. And if you want to play the video, we absolutely can. Play that.
Here, I'll say it.
Prime Minister Brian Platt with Bloomberg News. Yesterday, when you met with Premier Lee, one of the things you said in the public remarks was this partnership, Canada and China, this new partnership sets us up well for the New World Order. What did you mean by that? What is the New World Order?
Well, it's a great question, Brian, because I think the world is still determining what that order is going to be. And let's be clear what we're talking about first and foremost, which is what is going to govern global trade? What is the role of the WTO going to be? How important are bilateral deals such as the one we're developing, plurilateral deals, if I can use that term, Trans-Pacific Partnership, potential linkages between Trans-Pacific Partnership and the EU? Where is financial regulation, payment system regulation going to fit into that? All of these aspects, I'm use fancy words like the architecture, the multilateral system that has been developing these is being eroded, to use a polite term, undercut, use another term. So the question is, what gets built in that place? How much of a patchwork is it? How much is it just on a bilateral basis? Or where do like-minded countries in certain areas? So like-minded countries, just to be clear, doesn't mean you agree on everything. Aspects, for example, on digital trade or agricultural trade, climate finance as another area, to move into areas of geostrategy, geosecurity. You will have different coalitions that are formed. So what this partnership does is in areas, for example, of clean energy, conventional energy, agriculture, as we were just talking about, and financial services, which we've talked less about, but the evolution of the global financial system, the role of the renminbi over time, the evolution of cross-border payments. I know it all sounds very dry, except for your organization, which I think takes an interest in it. These are important elements of how the system is going to work. And look, the expectation is that rather than these being developed necessarily through the IMF, WTO, and other multilateral organizations, it is going to be coalitions that develop them not for the world, but for subsectors of the world.
Want to translate that, Ghost?
Multilateralism and multipluralism, and those are just, as you said, those are just fancy terms for like the TTP or TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, NAFTA, like all these trade organizations that basically undermined our ability just to engage in bilateral trade with countries because they would regulate it all. And you know, getting back to like the core issue here, what I like, the thing that I was always pumping the brakes on with everyone over the past year with the Canada becoming the 51st state is we don't want this voter base as part of America. We don't want Europeans voting in our free and fair elections once we establish free and fair elections, for the same reason we don't want Venezuelans, you know, being the 53rd state. Like, we don't want Venezuela to become the 53rd state because they're socialists too. Now, their socialism, I've learned, is different from European socialism, which is all about wealth redistribution. They're more of like the Saudi model of like generating wealth from natural resources and then distributing it for social welfare programs. But it's still socialism, and we're not into that. We're not into collectivism.
Right.
So we don't want these people. Like when Trump says we're going to make all these people American citizens, and everyone's like, yeah. No, we don't want that. And Trump is feigning something. And we'll talk about that when we get to the Thursday edition. But that's the red flag that I was throwing up.
Right. And yeah, to me, I agree with that. And I would say on a branding level, that is a branding speech. Carney, like, if you take the geopolitics out of the equation, that felt like being in a board meeting that's not supposed to be broadcast, where the political class and the banking class, of which he is both, is attempting to figure out how to rebrand the New World Order. That's basically what he's talking about. And, you know, you're talking about all the actuals and the mechanisms of what that is, of what that's going to entail. What the reason I think you get a little bit of the duper's delight smile at the very beginning when he is asked that question. Many in this audience are going to be aware of what that is, sort of a psychopathic tendency. The reason he does that, in my opinion, is because he knows that when the questioner says New World Order, that term must be abandoned by the ruling class, and it has been abandoned by them sharply, but they don't know what to replace it with, because I think we've done a good job on that. We as a movement have done a good job on trying to front run everywhere they're going to pivot. But Donald Trump has really guided people in the opposite direction. So anything that even smells like anti-sovereignty, anti-nationalism, anything that has a whiff of collectivism, they know is not good. And I'd say one more thing. Multipolarity is a word that Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin in particular are using a lot. Trump is starting to flirt with a little bit, kind of another word for the sovereign alliance, multipolar war. I think Carney is trying to draft off of that by using multilateralism, multipluralism. He's trying to conflate. This is the language coding that I talk about. Etymology matters, and they know that it matters from a psychological perspective. and they know that multipolarity is becoming a winning brand in geopolitics. And I think they're trying to rug it. They're trying to draft off of it and say, yeah, we're into multi-pluralism, which is the exact opposite of multipolarity. So I think that there's a little bit of branding talk there. And you can tell that Carney's a globalist architect, a systems architect. He is not, however, a globalist communicator. And he's not a good one. Yeah. He's being too honest when he speaks. And I think that that's fucking him.
Yeah, and that was kind of my take in the Monday edition, is that this guy he was on the board of the World Economic Forum for 10 years. He's one of the key players in implementing the climate change agenda, of Agenda 2030. He's one of the key guys who crafted how the banks are going to basically drive that from behind the scenes. And you're right. I don't think the plan, now Matt Ehret might disagree with me a little bit on this. I think he thinks that maybe Carney was always going to become the king. I would defer to him to validate that. But I don't know if he ever was supposed to actually take the field as a politician. Right. I think he was supposed to be the puppet master controlling the puppets. Yeah. But things got so far off track that they needed somebody who understood the game plan to step in and take control the same way Donald Trump has stepped in and take control on the American side. And that's what we've really seen. That's the tit for tat we've really seen evolve over this week, and that we'll talk about. But where it all lands is this post that Trump put out last night, because that was the take from Monday. But here we have Thursday night, Trump posting, "Dear Prime Minister Carney, please let this letter serve to represent that the Board of Peace is withdrawing its invitation to you regarding Canada's joining what will be the most prestigious board of leaders ever assembled at any time. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States." Yeah. He's like, you don't get to be part of our club.
Yep. Yeah. And that's embarrassing. It should be embarrassing for Canadians. And one of the, little subtopics I've mentioned over the last couple of years is for all the Canadians, and I see it, directly in my family, where they've got this renewed nationalist spirit emanating from the Canadians against Donald Trump. And I told them when they were down for New Year's, I said, do you think Donald Trump is upset that you are now espousing nationalist rhetoric out of Canada? Yes. And they had no response to that. So I said, you are becoming Canadian MAGA, and Trump is turning you into that. So they didn't like that, but it's the truth. Let me grab a couple comments here from Monday. We have Kelly McCulloch. I like Ghost's assertion the global banking system is the cartel. People want to know and name the shadowy cabal. I've tried to characterize it for normies, and they look at me quizzically or like I have two heads. Truly, the control of money or lack thereof will be the end game. Yeah,
well said, Kelly.
We've been saying that a long time, and I think that's another great thing with Carney being on center stage. There's no getting away from it. It's not like, hey, the politicians are in league with the central bankers. Like, hey, the central bankers are now the leaders directly. So I agree with you because of that I don't think that was plan A for them.
Yes.
Altab, the banking system is most certainly the key tool to impoverish nations in preparation for the 2030 goals. As you just said, this is a tool controlled by an upper level of the cabal. We've got Joe Croner has loved the new format. We are the news now. He's been really liking that we're not giving as much air to specific media outlets, and we're glad to see you guys have been enjoying the new format overall. And then Feather says the pace of Trump's strategy is quickening. The global cartel panic is becoming more visible by the day. Mark Carney trying to stay relevant while the NWO is collapsing is an amazing show. Well said.
Yeah. And so I think that kind of takes us into the next day of Davos really kicking off. And I think maybe it was technically going on Monday, but Tuesday was really when we had a lot of these videos that were coming out. Because Trump didn't actually arrive in Switzerland until Wednesday. But of course, we had all of the politicians speaking on Tuesday at the Europeans and the globalists in Switzerland, while Trump hosts his own press conference. Literally walked into the press room and said, "You know what, Caroline, take the day off. I'm going to run the room today." And that was an amazing press conference.
Yep. Yeah, we had posturing. We had him, doing the pregame smack talk, as you said, heading into Davos.
Well, I think I have a lot of messages for Davos, but the primary message is how well the United States is doing. And I say it all the time. A year and a half ago, we were a dead country, and now we have the hottest country in the world. I mean, you're beneficiaries too. If you look, some of you have 401ks. You don't have to tell me your numbers are the best they've ever been. And the stock market's at an all-time high. We are just doing great. So I think the message at Davos, we're leaving, have an interesting time. We have a lot of meetings scheduled, but the message for Davos is how incredible our country is doing.
Give any response to President Macron saying he will not join the Board of Peace?
Oh, did he say that? Well, nobody wants him because he's going to be out of office very soon. So, that's all right. What I'll do is if they feel like Costco, I'll put a 200% tariff on his wines and champagnes, and he'll join. But he doesn't have to join. If he said that, you're probably giving it to me a little bit differently. But if he actually did say that, but as you know, he's going to be out of office in a few months.
Did you invite President Putin to join the?
Yes, he's one of the people. These are world leaders, and the answer is yes.
So that was some great pre-game smack talk, as Ghost was saying, and this was the Tuesday brief. And I think Trump's elucidating a great kind of bicameral there, where he's saying, we're just doing well. But besides all the arguments directly that Americans can assert on these topics, the proof is in the pudding, right? Like scoreboard. And I think that specific dialectic is going to accelerate a lot in 26 and 27 in terms of our economic boom that's coming. And we know it's coming because I think it was yesterday or the day before, they were just announcing GDP is heading toward 5% according to their metrics. So, and Lutnick is saying 6% in 2026, maybe 7%. So, that's going to be the narrative battle space that the globalists are navigating while trying to get their people to commit wholesale to globalism, while across the sea, the US is heading into an economic golden age.
Absolutely. And, so the really interesting developments from Tuesday were, before Trump, Trump putting himself in the middle of the press brief, basically telling Caroline to take the day off and just running the press brief himself. This was front run by this invitation that went out over the weekend for the Board of Peace. And we have, let me share my screen. We have Trump's favorite Israeli journalist, Barak Ravid, sharing a copy of the invitation here on Monday, where he says, here's what the Board of Peace, not only are we these invitations go out, which everyone started talking about on Monday going into Tuesday, but here's the actual invitation. Trump is strong-arming the World Economic Forum to say, hey, we're all going to be in Davos this week. We might as well hold a signing ceremony for this new entity that I have put together, which is all about world peace, which y'all are all about, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we're going to do this on Thursday. I hope everyone can make it. And then at the same time, he sent, here's a letter that with the White House letterhead on it, response to Norway, because Norway said, Norway was running their mouth. They're getting a little mouthy. Yeah. And it says, Dear Jonas, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace. And that, to me, that's the Joker right there. That's him putting rhetoric out there. It's bait because, every anti-Trump analyst out there jumps on that and says, he's sitting here saying he's no longer going to be pursuing peace as he's about to host a a signing ceremony for the Board of Peace, right? Yeah. So narrative pincer.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. That was going to use that word. The pincer there, the unspoken pincer there as well is that Russia pincer that they are starting to kind of talk about publicly, which especially for the Baltic states, you've got the Nordic states, but the Baltic states, who was real mouthy at Davos was Finland. Yeah. The Finns are getting real mouthy. And they've been trying to kick off some false flag bullshit between Finland and Russia for the last year or so. I think that, they've tried it with Poland. They've tried it with a few different, areas, trying to get something kinetic, trying to get Article 5 triggered. And Finland has been very mouthy with the Russians. But I think that's part of that unspoken pincer where Trump is saying like, hey, I don't have to go against you, but I just told you that I consider Vladimir Putin a member of the Board of Peace de facto already. And if the US isn't backstopping you, then obviously, the unspoken threat there is that Vladimir Putin gets to do whatever the hell he wants with the Baltic states and with the EU.
Yeah, and like this is the image that I put in the news brief because this is exactly what I was thinking of as I was reading that letter to Norway. It's like Trump's basically just he's flexing like Hulk Hogan as like this is total like professional wrestling soap opera theater here. And I'm so glad you brought up Finland because it's great insight. Remember 2019 when we had the F-35 deal signed with Turkey. And they even paid us for it. They paid us for like the first deposit for the F-35s. And then all of a sudden, the Republicans came out and said, wait a minute, we're not going to give you F-35s, Turkey, unless you vote to put Finland in NATO. Because if you look at Finland's border with Russia, Finland has never been in NATO for this reason. Because look at the border they share with Russia. Then all of a sudden, Turkey becomes like the deciding vote on whether or not Finland's going to be in. Turkey says, no, we're not going to do this to Putin. And then the Republicans say, well, if you don't do that, you don't get your F-35s. You don't get the military equipment that you've already paid for. And so then Erdogan changes his vote and allows Finland to join NATO, which then sets up everything that you were just describing.
Strangely, I'll use another Hollywood reference. This isn't really Hollywood. It's actually foreign film, but it's propaganda. And this is well done and well done propaganda that's right up my alley. In 2022, a film called Sisu came out, which is all about all about a Finnish commando killing a battalion of Nazis, John Wick style. And they released a sequel in 2025 called Sisu Road to Revenge. Now, these are very entertaining, pulp, violent movies, so I would recommend them. But Road to Revenge is all about Russians. So instead of fighting a Nazi battalion, the Finnish commando is fighting a Russian battalion that's been sent to hunt him down. And they make the Russians, the Soviets, the most cartoonish, evil bastards possible, even compared to the Nazis in the first film. So in the first film, you're just like, oh, there's Nazis, whatever, like they're bad. In the second one, the leader of the Soviet brigade beat the main character. You find out that he killed his wife and beat his sons to death. And you're like, that's the opening. So there's some hardcore jingoist propaganda going on in the Baltics and in the Nordic regions that has been redirected from the Nazis to the Russians, which is quite ironic.
Yeah, that's well said and a great thing to point out. So if you want to grab some comments from Tuesday, and that takes us right into Wednesday.
Yeah, the other little thing on Tuesday, little depending on your view. Obviously, Ghost and I think the geopolitical stage is a bit more seismic, especially this past week. But yeah, the KKK Act being thrust into the narrative in the midst of on MLK Day with Don Lemon doing all his antics in Minnesota. Obviously, there's that narrative's getting a little boring to me. Yeah, but what I do like about the Minnesota narrative is that Donald Trump, I think, is actually trying to get people back on signal with it. He's been putting some truth posts out the last few days, basically saying like, hey, remember guys, this is about government fraud. Yeah. This isn't about like Somali. Yeah, we're using the Somalis. Yeah, Don Lemon's an idiot. This is about government fraud. And I think that's the main thing coming out of it, not Don Lemon.
Yeah, for sure.
Got a couple comments here. DLJ, cracking the Karens. I'm stealing that. That was an Ash take. Kelly again. The new Don Lemon show will be fun to watch. Something tells me a parody will show up on OnlyLands. We'll see what happens there. Maybe Alpha will do it. Feather, the Eagle, the Bear, the Dragon, competing interests in the Arctic under the global NWO, NATO, UN framework. The emphasis has been on competing, which translates for the global cartel into an opportunity for war. Trump's Board of Peace template will work well in the Arctic. Time to unleash the constraints on creative thinking levels of cooperation in the world of sovereign nations for the benefit of humanity. I totally agree with that. I think that, the framework of this Arctic competition is going to then morph into Arctic cooperation. And then Altab is a longtime supporter and basically always, we know he's reading them because he's always picking out his favorite quotes from the week. And then CT Lloyd, Republicans in Congress alleging a deliberate Democrat strategy to build voting blocks through fraudulent entitlements while the Trump admin pushes aggressive measures, including citizenship revocation. I envision Lady Lindsay gasping and clutching his pearls while feigning shock to an APAC fundraiser crowd of Bible Belt blue hairs. So, yeah, well said.
Well said. Yeah, that was funny.
So let's go on to Wednesday.
Yeah, so let's start with Wednesday because we were already talking about this on Tuesday. Of course, the brief runs a day later than the news that's actually happening. So we were talking about the Tuesday press brief that Trump kind of took over. And so here he is being asked at that press briefing straight up, hey, everyone's talking about this this board of peace, and there's a lot of consternation among the Europeans specifically because they're worried that maybe this is meant to threaten or maybe even replace the United Nations. Listen to Trump's response here.
Please. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I have two questions for you. One, do you want your board of peace to replace the UN?
Well, it might. I mean, the UN just hasn't been very helpful. I'm a big fan of the UN potential, but it has never lived up to its potential. The UN should have settled every one of the wars that I settled. I never went to them. I never even thought to go to them. They should be able to settle those wars. They don't. I believe you got to let the UN continue because the potential is so great.
And I wonder
Yeah, so doesn't even like feign. He just leans right into it and says, yeah, it actually might replace the UN because the UN hasn't achieved any of its core values, its core mission, which is basically to promote peace and de-escalate, kinetic conflict. Meanwhile, it's the Qataris, those dastardly Arabs, which we've been told our whole life are these ruthless people that could never, ever seek peace. And the Qataris have been at the center of brokering world peace in all these disputes. So the irony is just very, very rich.
Yeah, I appreciate you putting the videos into these briefs. That's usually Gordon who's doing that, and it definitely fleshes them out more. Speaking of that, I loved a couple of them you put in here. Howard Lutnick, and I'm so happy to see Howard Lutnick and Scott Bessent really getting shine on the main stage, because in 2024, those were the two guys that really caught my eye heading into the second Trump administration. I've said before, but if you guys want to look it up over the weekend, Evergreen interview between Howard Lutnick and Anthony Pompliano. Pomp is like a finance guy. Some people like him, some people don't. I think he's a good interviewer, if nothing else. There's a great interview from October 2024 between Lutnick and Pomp. And, they talk about some policy things and some of the strategy that you are seeing play out in 2025 and 6. But they really get into Lutnick's history with 9/11. Now, there are people, and I don't blame them, in the truth community who are like, man, Lutnick didn't go to work that day, and what's going on here? And, for anybody who doesn't know, Lutnick lost like most of the people he knows in 9/11, like his entire company.
His company lost, I think, the most people. I think it was 850. They lost more people than any other single company.
Yeah, and his best friend died. I think he was there. His brother, right? Yeah, his brother.
His younger brother that he raised because their parents died when they were teenagers. So him and his older sister raised their younger brother, who was like 13 or 14 when the parents died.
Yeah, and he's from Long Island, I think.
Very close to his brother. His brother worked for his company. His brother went to work and then he went to take his son to his first day of kindergarten.
Yeah, and all of which is to say, I do not believe that Howard Lutnick had anything to do with 9/11. In fact, my belief is that this is part of a revenge tour. And that Lutnick interview, if you've ever played with the theory of Donald Trump representing a revenge tour, not just, hey, we're saving the country, but we are on a revenge tour for many things, but specifically 9/11.
My favorite theory.
That Lutnick interview, when he talks about 9/11, these globalist psychopaths can't fake human emotion.
Yes.
Howard Lutnick, he's either the best actor in the world or that man is very driven. and he felt the need to bring the 9/11 narrative into the cusp of the new Trump administration. So anyway, all that to be said, for all the things we whine about 2025 and this hasn't been done and that hasn't been done, I would say the theater wherein the public deployments of the Trump administration are matching reality like beat for beat is the financial theater. And it's the most important theater. And Lutnick and Bessent, everything they have said they want to do heading into Trump 2.0 has been done. So this is a little clip you put into this brief, and I thought it was great that like Lutnick and Bessent essentially ushered Trump into the World Economic Forum as his vanguard. And I thought that was, everyone in that room knows exactly who these guys are, even if a lot of normie Americans don't know who these guys are.
Well, I think you should start at a much higher level. Okay. We are in Davos at the World Economic Forum. And the Trump administration and myself, we are here to make a very clear point. Globalization has failed the West and the United States of America. It's a failed policy. It is what the WEF has stood for, which is export, offshore, far shore, find the cheapest labor in the world, and the world is a better place for it. The fact is, it has left America behind. It has left the American workers behind. And what we are here to say is that America First is a different model, one that we encourage other countries to consider, which
we don't have to listen to the whole thing. That's the gist of it. But, you know, the reason I love that is, I mean, he walked into the lion's den, sitting down with his peers in the financial realm and said, we are against everything you are.
Yes.
And like, you know, there's no double speak. There's none of that. And one more clip was one you put in here, a short one. Props to Bart de Wever or de Wever, however you say that.
Love the name, by the way, Bart. What a great name.
Yeah. Belgian Prime Minister. Couldn't have summed this up better ourselves.
Say something.
Well, negotiate with Putin, I think, is not a very good idea because, as the Americans said, if you want to speak, speak softly, but carry a big stick. We don't have a big stick. We can only speak softly.
And again, one more point. Take that contrast and that admission, that moment of clarity out of Belgium, and contrast that with how are Scott Bessent, Howard Lutnick, and Donald Trump speaking. Are they speaking softly? They just went into enemy territory. They told everybody they consider it enemy territory. And they said, this is what we're doing. We would suggest you get on board. And I don't think the threat to the globalists is from Trump and Lutnick and Bessent. I think the unspoken threat is your people are going to tear you limb from limb if you continue going down this path, and we're going to let them.
Yeah. That's so well said. It's perfect. And the Lutnick thing, I love that Lutnick does that and that he's the one who comes there and says it, because obviously the corner of the information war that I've put myself in from the algorithm standpoint and the other people's standpoint, with the Israel-Jewish situation being a big focus of mine, he is somebody who the like Groyper crowd has suggested or insists is Trump's handler. They're like, this guy's Jewish. He's, he was part of, he didn't show up for work on 9/11. He orchestrated 9/11. He's Trump's Israeli Jewish handler, which there's so many, we've already listed off a lot of the reasons why that doesn't line up with reality or the facts. But then him going in there and being the one to say all that, I think just totally deflates that entire argument and just takes the wind out of their sails. And I love it.
Lutnick is the most, but besides rhetorically, policy-wise, we're told Lutnick is the most aggressive anti-globalist that Donald Trump knows. And the funny thing about the handler comment, and you're right, I totally agree with the way you're framing that. But the funny thing is, we're so used to in the MAGA world, like putting everything on Donald Trump and being like good and bad, right? Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump. Donald Trump didn't come up with this stuff, right? Is he a big part of coming up with this stuff? Sure. But Trump is a leader. Trump understands that he puts men in positions to do things.
He delegates all the time.
Scott Bessent is the world's foremost financial architect. which means he's the world's foremost financial demolitions expert. Donald Trump didn't bring Scott Bessent in because Donald Trump knows how to engineer the unwinding from the globalist system. He probably knows on a principled level, but he needs men to implement these visions in a way that he cannot. And Howard Lutnick is Trump will say in asides, we have to pull Lutnick back at times because Lutnick wants to burn the globalist system to the ground. And I think if Lutnick had his way and was president, I think the transition to the golden age would be a lot faster, but a lot more fiery than Trump's version, ironically.
Yeah, no, it's such a good point. Such a good point. I mean, remember Trump's first Secretary of State, his first term, was Rex Tillerson, the CEO of ExxonMobil. Now, I don't know if Rex, I mean, he got fired. He could have just been somebody like a globalist that Trump plugged in because he knew all the oil players and Trump was trying to get all the oil stuff figured out. But the fact that he put the ExxonMobil CEO as his first Secretary of State and then a year later fired him and kind of like disrespected him. And then now ExxonMobil is being kicked out of Venezuela and said, you don't get to get your money back. You don't get to participate. You're out. I think all of that is related.
Yeah.
So I think you're 100% right.
I also think that, and who knows with these things, the TV characters, as Chris would call them. When I listen, the reason I really focus on Bessent and Lutnick is that when they are deployed, I feel that we are watching actual deployments. Yes. When they say something, it happens. Policy happens on the back of what they say. That is not the case with Marco Rubio, with JD Vance, with a lot of these characters that may or may not be good, but they've
been around much longer than the other two. Been around, like from a political standpoint, they've been political figures for much longer than Bessent and Lutnick have. Yes.
So I think that there's a TV character cabinet, and then there's the A team.
Yes.
And when I reference the A team, I think that A team goes back to Donald Trump in New York, and that's the A team: Steve Witkoff, Howard Lutnick, Scott Bessent, Rudy Giuliani, maybe silently these days, but like that's the A team. The A team is not Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is the meme. That, and you could argue that it's a little bit of a humiliation ritual for some of these Republicans that have gone against Trump in the past quite aggressively.
Big difference between the way Rex Tillerson spoke publicly and how Lutnick and Bessent speak, because Rex Tillerson never had any of those sound bites that we're seeing out of Lutnick and Scott Bessent. And the last thing that we should play from the Wednesday edition was the same day that Trump did that, where they asked him, is this going to replace the UN? And he said, well, it might. Here is Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, at his own press briefing conference, being asked a similar question.
I have already said in my introductory remarks, and Dmitry Peskov confirmed that yesterday, that President Putin has received an invitation by President Trump to become a part of the Board of Peace. We have also received annex to that letter, rather lofty document called a charter of the Board of Peace that states that the board will be prepared to deal not only with the Gaza sector, I don't think it's even mentioned there, but it would be tasked with the resolution of conflicts around the world. And naturally, we'd like to clear up the conceptual vision and the practical vision of our American colleagues of this initiative. We're trying to clear these matters up.
Yeah, so there's the Russians telling you, oh yeah, the Board of Peace is going to be much bigger than just Gaza. This isn't just about Gaza. This is about addressing all the conflicts around the world that you've heard Donald Trump claim to have resolved over the past year. The Board of Peace is the actual vehicle, the alliance that's going to take it on.
Yep, and I've been saying for a couple of years, amidst all the warmongering and escalations with Russia and China, it's weird. They have joint economic projects well along the road to development. So kind of a strange thing to be planning with the people that you may or may not be going to world war with. A couple comments from Wednesday. Feather, predictable freakout by the globalist bureaucrats while Trump prioritizes the Western Hemisphere over Europe. Why are we paying for Europe's security? Lutnick was a solid opener yesterday from Ash. Yep, Lutnick is a great one. Danimal, Mark Carney, 120th governor of the Bank of England, which according to the Chiquitas at Promethean Action is the central villain of all banks in their empire. Based on results, I cannot argue with them. Trump's response was perfect. Good to have a good guy wielding power for once. Absolutely. And what else we got here? Gary, what we've heard from Davos 2026, Carney's speech in particular so far sounds like the final stages of grief. Depression with a distant halo of acceptance, a far cry from the confidence of just a few years ago. European nations seem to have heard the message. Unless you change, you will own nothing and it will suck. Yeah, I totally agree. There's an inversion happening there. We'll try to get through Thursday and Friday a bit quicker and try to actually get out of here around 60 minutes. I think we can do it, because we front run a lot of the late week narratives Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah.
But biggie from Thursday that I want your take on. Donald Trump, kind of as a little aside, said people will soon be prosecuted for what they did. This was him talking about 2020 election fraud, something that I don't know if any of you guys know this, but it has been a bit of a topic of discussion at Badlands Media over the last few years.
Or that should have never started, and it wouldn't have started if the 2020 U.S. presidential election weren't rigged. It was a rigged election. Everybody now knows that. They found out. People will soon be prosecuted for what they did. It's probably breaking news, but it should be.
Now, Ghost, I just want your thoughts on why do you think Donald Trump is not just taking the win, bro?
Yeah, well, I think this is like when Detective Gordon and Dark Knight walks into the restaurant and the mob boss says, "You're not going to embarrass me in front of all my friends here." And he says, "Oh, don't worry. They're all coming with us too." And they arrest everybody. Like, this is Trump walking into the place where the puppet masters all convene to plot taking over the world and tells them, "Hey, we're going to start prosecuting all your puppets here pretty soon because all of you in this room are the ones who participated in stealing the election from me in 2020, and you shouldn't have done that." And here's the retribution campaign starts right now.
Yep, totally agree. And again, this is the most frustrating thing to watch that we know is going to happen. And I reserve the right to bitch about it. Is that the people who ridiculed us and called us doomers for not taking the win in 2024, even though we all did take the win, and said that the narrative of Donald Trump being installed as president again was overwhelmingly positive, but that we need retribution and justice for 2020 and believe it will come. Well, all those people are going to pivot and say they always knew it was coming, et cetera, when they demonized us for 2 years for talking about election fraud and saying that it needs to be a topic of discussion. And the truth of the matter is, those people, and many of them are Q people, didn't want justice for the 2020 election fraud. They want their team to win. Even if their team winning means winning a fake election and not addressing any of the underlying issues that Donald Trump has told you he is here to address. So the irony is, the people that tell Badlanders that we don't trust the plan and we don't get the plan and we don't support Donald Trump, we are the ones who are supporting the plan and forwarding the plan and not losing sight of the plan. When I would suggest that the people playing Match Online are the ones who consistently lose sight of the plan because they tell people not to talk about it.
Yeah, that's well said. And that's it's like unwitting gatekeeping almost,
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the only thing I would add, because I don't need to show anything, is just on this day, I mean, Trump spoke obviously, and there's a lot to farm out of his speech, but we also got the signal because the country started accepting or declining invitations to the Board of Peace, and it was all the Arab countries, the Muslim countries came out on fire saying yes, 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 and then all the European countries started saying no, 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 no. So it's like the Board of Peace is the sovereign alliance. And it's actually starting to form now that all the bad actors are saying no and all the good actors are saying yes.
Yep. And this was from Friday's brief. Ghost was putting that together, the Board of Peace. We had Kushner there, Saudi Foreign Minister, Faisal bin Farhan. We got the master plan here.
Yeah. Yes. Pull up the master plan real quick. So the master plan, people like all the Groyper crowd, all them, I just pick on them because they're trying to subvert the narrative here. Yeah. They're like, well, they talked about Witkoff and Kushner talked about in an interview back in October that they have been working on a master plan for like 2 years for Gaza. presenting it as if they have like the architecture and the design plans and everything. All a master plan is, from an architecture standpoint, is just colored fields like this, showing you, oh, here we're going to do residential, here we're going to do commercial, here we're going to do roads here. Like that's all a master plan is. It's not like actually figuring out the details.
Zoning, basically.
Yeah, it's like a zoning plan, basically. And so like as if that is something that is like they were planning to destroy Gaza because of this.
Right.
So it's very, very silly.
Yep. U.S. exiting the World Health Organization was a little topic there. Go ahead.
Oh, just the logo. Show the logo. They unveiled the logo for the Board of Peace, and it's literally the UN logo, but with America featured as like
awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
And only other thing from Thursday that I thought was interesting, a little undercurrent to Davos, was Donald Trump said, we are pivoting to nuclear, something I became obsessed with in 2023 and 24. And he said it right to them. And Friedrich Merz of Germany said that it was a mistake for Germany to go to wind and solar and the Green New Deal and all that kind of stuff. And if anybody wants to check that out, I wrote an Amerigeddon article on my Substack a couple of years ago where I said that Donald Trump was going to be trying to reverse engineer the nuclear nightmare narrative. And because I personally have come to believe that that is the most weaponized narrative that has been used against humanity, essentially, is that nuclear equals bad, when Trump obviously knows it is quite the opposite. And let me grab a couple comments from Thursday and Friday. Kelly McCulloch, Badlands has been indispensable for truth, even accelerating the game in 2026. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Kelly. Really appreciate
Contributors are not beta testers. There is no kowtowing. Confrontation and consideration. Thank you. Danica, as a convicted J6er, pardoned J6er, I appreciate the attention Badlands gives to the J6 narrative. Yeah, we've certainly had people in Badlands affected by that as well. So, try to approach everything consistently. Anna, great brief. She posted some stuff from Promethean Action here. A lot of people have been sending me that stuff. It's good. I'm glad they're talking. They seem to be talking about things from a banking perspective. A few things I don't like that they've put out that I don't really jive with. I've had a lot of, I don't know like where this all kind of came from. I've had a lot of people both at Badlands and in my comments being like Promethean, like look at what they're doing. I'm not trying to avoid the topic. I've looked at some of their videos. I just there's a few things they put out recently that kind of go against what I think. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but
specifically the one of the threads that everyone's sending to me is that they assert that Maduro and Hugo Chavez were London banker assets that were actually running the cartel. And just anytime anyone is like affirming the mainstream media's narrative and then trying to provide supporting evidence, but then also throwing in some like buzzwords like, oh, London bankers, oh, MI6. It's like that's where I the red flag goes up in my head a little bit.
Yeah. And again, I don't know what's in people's hearts, etc. I'm just letting you guys know who send me stuff sometimes, and you're like, oh, I wonder why these guys aren't interacting with this group or that group. I know
nothing about that group. I know nothing about that group. And they could be right. Like maybe they're right, but it just doesn't jive with some of the research that I've done on my own. So
we talk about the concept of drafting all the time. Chris talks about this, and the reason that our flags go up and we're pretty careful when this kind of stuff goes up is that when I know the group's been around for a while, but I have literally never been told about them at all until the last 30 days. And in the last 30 days, I am being sent links to Promethean Action every single day on every single topic. And all of them are talking about the London bankers. Now, I think it's a good thing to look into, and I think it's important. And I think there's a lot of truth there. But I'm certainly not going to start saying London is the deep state. And I think people need to get out of that mentality. The deep state is a global criminal cabal. And I think the general you are falling into this apparatus or this cipher where you're looking for the bad guy. You're looking for the villain, the prime villain. Who's the enemy? As long as we take them out, what, are we going to take out London and then the deep state goes away? That's not how this works. So anytime we see like people trying to put everything, this is the answer to everything, That's not really how it works. These are systems, these are ideologies, and those are some red flags that go up for me. And for sure, for me, whenever something is being pushed really, really, really hard, I will kind of look for, like, is there any contradiction in here? And as Ghost said, there's certainly some Sovereign Alliance stuff that I feel like they are not only not on signal with, but are like going the opposite direction on. And they will often do that by writing, really good narratives about some things and then maybe rugging some other ones. Again, they might be earnest. Matt Ehret and I disagree on a lot of these things with the bankers. I think he's right about the structure of central banking and everything. But I think Matt sometimes is like, these are the villains. It's the British Crown. It's this and that. And I think it's much more. It's like, guys, the wolves are in the house. Like, you take out the London bankers, and it doesn't mean that the U.S. deep state goes away. So that's the only thing that I kind of have a problem with.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And there are people in the Badlands, like G Money disagrees with me on Venezuela, and he might be right. He might be right. But I just present my research, and
yeah,
it is,
totally.
So.
Just wanted to let people know I do look at the stuff. I think they've been putting out some good videos. Obviously, you guys should engage with whatever you want, but like, I'm not ignoring it. I just I definitely don't. I'm not going to wholesale endorse. About half of what they're saying right now is stuff that I definitely don't agree with.
Yeah. Do you have Friday comments?
Yeah, Buffy, paid subscriber. Woohoo! No more WHO. These are new comments. Obviously, I know a lot of you guys populate in through the rest of the day. His glorious victory. Bravo, Badlands News Brief team. For those who accept that Huckabee rightly fears the implications of God not keeping covenant, I hope you can take a moment to grasp the straw man here. God cannot break covenant, and so he will not. Huckabee's premise is therefore wrong. We, however, can fail to understand what God has done and is doing.
That he's referring to a story that we haven't discussed here, but it's in the brief today. So go check out the Friday brief, and you'll see what he's talking about.
All right, guys. Well, we did that one a little quicker. Hope you guys are enjoying the blitz. Hope you guys are enjoying the brief. I was talking to Ash last night. The comment section is on fire.
I love it.
In the last week, we love it. It doesn't always agree with us. You guys might not agree with what we just were talking about. We don't have firm opinions on everything we're talking about, right? I'm just trying to be open about saying, like, hey, I've seen the comments. I am looking into this thing. I don't know what my opinion is on it. But we love the back and forth. We love you guys going back and forth with each other. People definitely seem to like that we're not drafting off the mainstream media these days. And if you guys have enjoyed this content, if you like the blitz, the only way we can justify the time on these things is through voluntary support. Everything we're putting out here is free. Obviously, you can see in the comments section. By the way, I'm just going with the top voted comments and everything. I'm not trying to pick out paid subscribers or anything like that. But when you see that paid subscriber badge, those are the people that fund us to do this kind of stuff. So we're going to keep it free. But if you guys do like what we're doing, if you do want to support us more directly over on the Substack side, myself, Ghost, and Ash, you can do that with a paid subscription. Otherwise, just share the stuff out there. Get people to subscribe.
Yeah.
What do you got going on the next few days, Ghost?
Well, this afternoon I'll be doing my geopolitics show. So when you watch this tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, go back, watch my show. And then Monday I had to cancel last week because I had my kids, just family stuff going on. But Monday night we're going to do part 2 of Hugo Chavez. So and Delcy, we'll talk about Delcy Rodriguez and all that stuff. So check out the Book of Trump Monday night.
Isn't it amazing that the Venezuela narrative is pretty much out of the news cycle?
Right.
Absolutely nuts. All right, man. Good show. Good to see you. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Again, subscribe, upgrade if you want, or just don't. Hit the thumbs up button either way. Leave a comment. And I will see you guys Sunday night with Ash. Will be joining me on the narrative.
Awesome.
And, she'll probably get all uppity. I'll probably have to mansplain some things to her, but it should be educational for you guys. All right, guys. See you next time.
See ya.
All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. That is the new and improved, I guess, Substack we got going on. Again, totally free, but we do appreciate those who are supporting us over there. That, a lot of work goes into making the Substack go and continue, and these guys do a great job. So if you are not following over there, I'd encourage you to. You can get access to that over on Substack every Saturday morning. I think the next episode is going live here shortly. So make sure you're subscribed. And if you are feeling so inclined, do so with, $5-10 a month, whatever it is over there. We appreciate it. But that is the Rumble exclusive stream. I will see you guys again tonight at 10:30 p.m. Eastern on the Devolution Power with Chris Paul. You guys have a great Saturday.